Hello and welcome to another fun-filled video of Math with Mr. Sims. Today we'll be doing our Cycle 5 test incentive. That's right. So if you got a test coming up here soon, this is the Cycle 5 test incentive for it. So I hope it helps you out. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. As always, I'm going to start off by setting the timer. Basically, we're going to see what we can get done in about 30 minutes here. So Alexa, set a timer for 30 minutes. Awesome. All right, let's get started then. All right, so when you're looking at a problem like this, what we're going to do is this one here is find the sum. And when you're looking at that, you're probably thinking to yourself, hey, that looks a lot like a FOIL problem, right? So you might be tempted, to basically start doing some FOIL stuff with that, right? Like that. But that's actually not what this problem has you doing, because you'll notice that there's this plus sign right here in the middle of the problem, and that plus sign right there in the middle of the problem is crucial and critical to look at. So what that's saying is you have to add these terms together. So all this really is this is a just combining like terms. So I'm just going to combine the 7x and the 9x together. That's just going to give me a 16x, right? 16x. I'm going to combine this 4 and this 6 together. That's going to give me plus 10. So 16x plus 10. And actually, that's my final answer. I found the sum. So there was a lot of ways you should have known that. Number one, sum is supposed to remind you. Also, you have the plus sign to help you out there, all right? So once again, make sure you're careful with those. Don't think that those are FOIL. They look similar, but this is a critical part of it that makes it not FOIL. FOIL has to be multiplication, all right? So, okay, now let's get to a FOIL one. You can actually see the difference. This one, you have the plus sign. This one, there is no plus sign. This is actually multiplication by juxtaposition here. They're just right next to each other. So we're going to multiply them, right? So this find the product. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take now, and I'm going to start with my first term times my first term, right? So once again, since this is FOIL, it's first, outside, inside, last. Once again, that's first, outside, inside, last. So this is my first, these are my first terms here. So I'm going to multiply the 3x times the x. And I always suggest when you're doing this, don't try and draw all your lines first. Draw one line, do that part, then draw the next line, do that part. Because then it'll help you keep track of where you're at, okay? So anyway, 3x times x is 3x squared, right? Then I have 3x times 8. See, like I did that, I did one more part, and now I'm going to actually write it down here. 3x times 8 is plus 24x. 9 times x is plus 9x. Finally, 9 times 8 is plus 72. All right, so now since I have that, I'm going to combine like terms. These two can combine. So I get 3x squared, right, plus 33x plus 72. And that right there is my final answer. Awesome, huh? So once again, FOIL stands for first, outside, inside, last. This was my first step here. This is my outside step, my inside step, and my last step, all right? So hopefully that made sense. Let's move on to the next problem. So this problem, I'm going to have to zoom out because it's a bigger problem. It says, look at the graph shown below. Which equation best represents the graph? So here's the graph, and they wanted me to know what equation represents it. So what's nice is when you have multiple choice, it actually makes it so much easier because you can start to eliminate options to figure out which one it is. So I'm going to notice a couple things. First of all, this is my starting point. My y-intercept is 2. So my y-intercept, also known as our b, right? Remember in the formula, y is equal to mx plus b, right? In that formula, my b here would be 2. My y-intercept is 2. Okay, sorry, I'm going to change my, there, I like that better. And then my slope then, to find my slope, I need 2 pretty points. Well, this is one pretty point there. Another pretty point looks like it's there. So in order to get from here to here, always go from left to right. I go up 1 and over 1, 2. So I went up 1, so my slope is going to be up 1 over 2. In other words, a rise of 1 and a run of 2. Okay, rise over run. So now that I have my B and I have my M, I'm going to go ahead and plug those in to the equation up here to see what I get as my equation. So my equation should be y is equal to 1/2, because that's the slope I got, right? X, my B is plus 2. So my answer is y is equal to 1/2 x plus 2. Which answer choice is it here? It looks like it is D. All right. Make sure on the test when you put your answer, you actually put D. The answer is not this, because although this is the answer, remember, if it's multiple choice, is in fact D. So make sure you do put the D. All right, so let's look. We've now had 3 problems. We did one that was a sum. We did one that was a products problem, otherwise known as FOIL. And we did one that was basically finding the equation from a graph, all right? From a plotted line on a graph. So let's go ahead and move on now to find another product. So this is a lot like FOIL, but the difference between this one and the last one that we did with FOIL is this one has a binomial on this side and a trinomial on this side. So you have 2 terms here and 3 terms here. That's going to make this more complicated, but not too bad. Just remember, in FOIL, let's look at what we were doing in FOIL. In FOIL, we took and we multiplied this term by every other term on this side. So we multiplied by this term and by this term. Then we took this term and we multiplied it to everything on the other side as well, to every other term in that polynomial, right? So we're going to use that same reasoning over here, and we're going to take this x and we're going to multiply this x times this, and times this, and times this, times this, and times this. I'm going to erase this because, like I said, you should do them one at a time, but I wanted you just to see where we're headed, all right? So just remember, this x has to be multiplied times everything in here, and the 4 also has to be multiplied times everything in here. So if I take and I multiply x times x squared, I'm going to get x cubed. Then if I take and I multiply x times 3x, I'm going to get plus 3x, right? Then if I multiply x times 7, oh, I'm sorry, that's plus 3x squared. X times 3x is 3x squared, because the x times x is x squared, okay? And then finally, x times 7 is going to be plus 7x, right? In other words, 7 times x is 7x. All right, so that's that side. Let me do a different side here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this next. 4 times x squared is going to be 4x squared, right? 4 times 3x is going to be plus 12x, right? Finally, 4 times 7 is going to be plus 28. All right, so this is what I have here. I'm going to go ahead and tally these two up. I should get x cubed, right? Plus the 3 plus 4 is going to be 7x squared, right? Plus the 12 plus 7 is 19x. And finally, plus 28. Now I do suggest that you rewatch that if you're struggling with that at all, so that you can make sure you know what to do on these, right? All right, so once again, the answer x cubed plus 7x squared plus 19x plus 28. All right, let's go out. Without further ado, let's go to the next one here. Sweet. Solve this equation for y in terms of x. Now, if you wanted me to solve this equation for y in terms of x, basically, don't get confused by this in terms of x. A lot of people see that and they kind of freak out. They don't know what that means. What it's saying is it's saying solve this equation for y, but you're still going to have x's in your thing because we don't know what x is, right? So it's basically, it's just saying solve the equation for y, or get y alone. All right, so this is my equation here, 4x plus 7y. I'm just going to rewrite it here so I have room to work. 4x plus 7y is equal to 2. So if I want to solve it for y, what's keeping me from getting y alone right now is this other term here. So I'm going to deal with that first. I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. Now, a couple common mistakes I see students make. First of all, these cancel out, and I'm left with 7y is equal to, and here's where the mistake happens. I see a lot of students try and take negative 4 from 2, and they get negative 2x. Now, that, though, is incorrect. You can't do that because these two terms are not like terms. They are very, very different. This is like saying I have 2 cookies, and this is like saying I have negative 4 bags of donuts, right? Cookies and donuts don't mix. So in this case here, I'm just going to write my negative 4x. I always write the x term first because I want it to fit the form y is equal to mx plus b. So that's why I write the x term first. So negative 4x plus 2, right? So now that I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and take and divide by 7 across the board. Right? And once again, the reason I'm dividing by 7 is because 7 is being multiplied times the y, and I want to get my y alone. The only way I can get that y alone is to get rid of that 7. And since 7 is being multiplied times y, I'm going to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So that makes these 7's cancel out. I get y is equal to negative 4 over 7x plus 2 over 7. So that right there, okay, it doesn't match any of these currently because when I divided by 7, I chose to divide each individual term by 7. That's not that's not a big issue to take care of. Instead of dividing each individual term by 7 here, once I had 7y is equal to negative 4x plus 2, at this point I would just divide this by 7 and this whole thing by 7. I could do it either way. I could divide in each individual term by 7, or I could divide the whole thing by 7. So this one's going to give me y is equal to negative 4x plus 2 over 7, which ends up being, which one? Now, it actually doesn't look like any of these currently, right? Like the negative 4x, I put that in the front because I like it to match this form. But notice they didn't do that. So you're going to have to figure out which one is it. So first of all, let's look for our negative 4x. Well, this one's got a negative 4x. This one's got a positive 4x, so that one's out. This one also has a positive 4x, so that one's out, right? This one also has a negative 4x. So this is a negative 4x, but I need a plus 2. Well, here's my positive 2, right? So negative 4x plus 2. This one's negative 4x plus 7, or 7 minus 4x. So this one's out. My answer is A. All right? Make sense? All right, so hopefully that made sense to you. In other words, I could rearrange this here to be y is equal to 2 minus 4x over 7. Remember, the only reason I put that negative 4x first was because I like it to fit this form here. If you don't make it fit that form, it would have been 2 minus 4x over 7, right? It's the same thing. The only difference is it just looks a little bit different, all right? So, okay, let's move on to the next one. In math, the volume... Oh, that didn't like that. Let me try that again. In math, the volume of a prism is equal to the area of the base multiplied by the height. This is given by the equation volume is equal to the area of the base times the height, where V is the volume, B is the area of the base, and H is the height. Which equations give H in terms of B and V? So in other words, they want me to get H alone. So they want me to get H alone, and they give me the equation that volume is equal to base times height. All of this is filler information. It's not bad information, but it's not necessary for the problem. They could have just as easily have given me this and said solve for H, and then I would have what I need to do for this problem. So anyway, to solve for H, here's my H. I want to get my H alone. So to solve for H, I'm going to take and divide both sides by the area of that base. So now I get volume over the area of the base is going to equal my height. So volume over base is equal to h. And that right there, my friends, is the answer. The height is equal to the volume over the base. Right? Okay, let's look further on the next one. Here we go. So once again, that's called a literal equation. If you struggled with that one at all, definitely get yourself some practice on literal equations, all right? I'll be able to help you with that if you need as well, all right? What is the slope of the line shown below? So I like these problems. They're fun because you get to kind of analyze a graph a little bit, right? So when you're finding the slope of a line, one of the important steps is to find two pretty points. So I need two pretty points. And what I mean by that is I need 2 points that fit on the grid perfectly. Like this one here, it crosses this grid right here, but notice, pardon me, it's not perfectly at an intersection, right? I want it to be perfectly at this intersection right here, and it's not. So that point is not a pretty point. Now this point here looks like a pretty point, and this point here looks like a pretty point, as does this point here and this point here. So I could use any of those that I want. I'm going to choose to use this one and this one, all right? So knowing that those two are my pretty points, in fact, I'm going to make them a different color just so we're clear on which ones we're using. That one and that one, right? So because those are my two pretty points now, I'm going to find the slope of the line. So remember, your slope of your line is equal to your rise over your run. Now, before I calculate anything, I actually just want to take a look at the line and look at it and see, is it a positive, a negative slope, or a zero slope, or undefined, right? And if you remember, you had the comic that we did with the guy, right? Where this guy, sorry, this one, oh, didn't mean to do that. This guy here, right? That when he's going up the hill, he's like, it's positive, it's puff, positive, right? He's trekking up the hill, right? I don't know what I'm doing there. So this guy, he's going up the hill, he's like, oh, it's puff, positive, right? So then when he's going down the hill, he's like, nice, this is nice. Going downhill on his skateboard maybe, right? He's like, nice, right? And then when he's here, he's like, this is zero fun, right? So this is the zero fun. This was his nice area, right? And then this is the, I'm undefined, right? Or it's undefined. All right, so this is the undefined, right? So in this case here, just looking at this graph, this is a negative graph, right? Nice negative. You can even imagine the guy roller skating on this, right? There he is. All right, so you get the idea. The guy's going down it. He's like, this is nice, right? So we know it's going to be a negative slope. If my answer is not a negative slope, I made a mistake, okay? So let's look at my rise now. My rise is -2. If you said 2, you're right, it's 2 hops, but it's 2 hops in that negative direction. So we're going to go -2, and it's going to go over 1 to the right. So -2 over 1. So my slope of my line is really just -2 is the slope of the line, okay? All right? So remember, that's your m. Your m is going to equal your rise over your run, which is in this case -2 over 1, or -2. All right? All right, let's go ahead and continue. Solve for A. Write identity or no solution if appropriate. So to solve for A here, I got 4a squared plus 1 over 9 is equal to 9. Now that might look ugly and intimidating to you, but it doesn't need to be. Just think carefully about a couple things here. So first of all, 4a squared plus 1 over 9 is equal to 9, right? I want to get my A alone. They want me to solve for A or get A alone. So I got to get rid of all this other junk here so that I can get to my A first. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this denominator by multiplying that 9 by 9 on both sides. And if I do that, these two 9s are going to cancel out, and I'm left with 4a squared plus 1 is equal to 81. Now at this point here, this is basically almost like a regular two-step equation. It's actually a little bit more than that because you have to deal with the exponent as well. But at this point, I'm going to just, not add, I'm going to subtract 1 because it's currently, the variable term has 1 added to it. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 1 from both sides. So I get 4a squared is equal to 80, right? So now I have 4a squared is equal to 80. I still want to get my a alone, so I'm now going to deal right here with this 4 that's attached to my a squared, keeping me from getting to that a squared term. So I'm going to divide by 4. Once again, the reason I'm dividing is because 4 is being multiplied times a squared, and I have to do the opposite operation or the inverse operation of multiplication then. So I'm going to do division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4, like I said, and I get a squared is equal to 20, right? So now I get a squared is equal to 20. At this point, the best thing for me to do is to go ahead and take the square root of both sides because I want to get a by itself, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to get a is equal to the plus or minus square root of 20. So I don't know the square root of 20 off the top of my head, so I'm going to need to make my perfect squares chart, right? 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, and so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and do a few of these. I get 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25. I already see that I'm above the 20 with this 25, right? So I'm going to take this 20 here, and I'm going to start dividing it by each of these until I find one that fits. Well, 20 divided by 16 doesn't work. I get a decimal answer. 20 divided by 9, I also get a decimal answer. 20 divided by 4, however, gives me something I can work with. So my first answer is going to be the number that worked, which was 4. So the first factor is going to be that. And it's 4 times what? When I take 20 and divide it by 4, I get a number. That number is 5. So 4 times 5 should give me 20. If it doesn't, I need to go back and do it again because I messed up. Okay? So now I have square root of 4 times square root of 5. That gives me 20. Square root of 4 is 2. So I now get 2 square roots of 5. And that is my final answer if I want to only get half credit. Dun dun dun. Yeah, if I left it like that, I forgot something important. My plus or minus. So don't forget, your answer should be plus or minus 2 square roots of 5. Alright? Make sure you have that plus or minus. I'll rewrite that for you. 2 square roots of 5. Okay. Alright, we are making some good progress here. Let's go ahead and do, ooh, there's a nice evil word problem. Let's go ahead and do the evil word problem. So, a car rental agency charges a base fee of $50 plus an additional charge of 0.2 for every mile driven. The total charge C is given by the equation C is equal to 50 plus 0.2 m, where m represents the number of miles driven. When Mr. Escobedo rented a car, the total charge was $81.20. That was the total charge. How many miles did Mr. Escobedo drive the car? So they want to know how many miles. This is very important. So the miles is what they want to know. Well, currently my equation, the equation they give me is C is equal to 50 plus, I'm just going to do 0.2 m, right? The extra 0 there is unnecessary, right? So 0.2 m. And I want to find out the number of miles he drove. And they gave me the cost of the thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and substitute in for C. I'm going to substitute in the amount. Actually, before I do that, even better, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and solve for m so I can get m alone, so that when I do put that in, it's all ready to give me my value for m. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take and I'm going to start off by subtracting 50 from both sides. So I end up getting c minus 50, right, is equal to 0.2 m. Now that I have that, I still do not have m alone. Once again, the reason I'm solving for m is I want to be able to find out how many miles just by plugging in the c, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to divide by 0.2. And once again, I'm doing that because my m value is being multiplied by 0.2. And I don't want that to be the case anymore. I don't want it to be multiplied by 0.2. So I'm going to divide both sides by 0.2. So I end up with c minus 50 over 0.2 is equal to m, okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plug in the value I have for c, which is 81.20. All I'm doing is I'm plugging the 81.20 in for c. So I get 81.20 minus 50 over 0. Let me try that again. Over 0.2 is equal to m. All right? So what I need to do now, I just need to solve for m. Not solve for m. I need to simplify all this, right? 81.20 minus 50 is going to be 31.20 divided by 0.2. I gotta be honest, I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so I'm gonna ask if you have a calculator handy, feel free. I actually left mine in the other room. So Alexa, what is 31.2 divided by 0.2?
31.2 divided by 0.2 is 156.
So 156, according to Alexa, is my answer. That's going to be 146 miles, okay? Don't forget to always label your answers. They're important, okay? So 156 is the number of miles that he drove, and that's how he got that total charge, okay? So hopefully that made sense. Once again, just to make it clear, what we did was we took this equation that was solved for c, and we solved it for m. Once we solved it for m, I plugged in the value into c because that was the total cost, and that gave me my m value, which was 156. All right, let's go ahead and do another one. If y varies directly with x and y is 54 when x is 24, which of the following represents this situation? So remember, when you're saying something varies directly, what you're saying is that y is equal to some constant times x. That's all it is. There's no plus or anything over here. And the other thing is that k cannot be 0. That's important, okay? So y is equal to some value times x, right? So if you want to know what this k value is, then I need to rearrange it to solve for k, and so I can see what it is, right? So if I wanted to get k alone, if I wanted to solve for k, I would have to divide both sides by x. So here's what I want you to remember. Whenever you hear direct variation, I want you to think of y over x, because y over x is how we get our k value here, okay? So y over x is equal to our k. So in this case here, it says y is 54 when x is 24. So now all I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute in for y and x. I'm going to substitute in 54 for y and 24 for x. And that's going to equal my k. And just by looking at this here, I can already tell that 54 divided by 24 is not going to be 30. So this 54/24 has to be able to fit into my original equation of y is equal to kx, right? In other words, let me try it this way. If I have y is equal to kx, right? This should be a lowercase k. If I have y is equal to kx, this 54 over 24 needs to fit right where that k is, all right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plug that in, but you'll notice that none of these work currently, right? None of them look like the right answer. Y is equal to 54 over 24x. Now, if you have your handy dandy calculator, the nice thing is it's going to simplify that for you right away. But I know it's not going to be 30 because 54 divided by 24 is definitely not 30, right? It's also not 78. So B is out and C is out. It's got to be either A or D, right? Well, I see the 54 is bigger. The answer is going to be A. Another way you could do that is Alexa, stop the timer. So another way you could do that is you could divide each thing by 6, all right? So you divide the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator by 6, and I get y is equal to, if I divide this by 6, right, and this by 6 to simplify that fraction, I get y is equal to 9 over 4x. And now you can actually see that that is the correct answer, right? Once again, if you do that in your calculator will do that easily for you. All right, I'm going to do one more problem. This is actually one of the hardest problems that I thought was on the thing, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it for you real quick. This is a freebie, and then we're just going to call it good for this video, all right? So here we go. So you got negative, oh, by the way, if you have not yet put your name, date, and period number in the upper right-hand corner, then do that now. Let's go in the upper left-hand corner of your page. I want you to draw a smiley face, all right? In the bottom left-hand corner, I want you to draw a bat, right? So in the bottom left-hand corner, a bat. So in the upper right, on the upper left-hand corner, draw a smiley face, okay? In the bottom right-hand corner, draw a bat like this or something like akin to this, okay? All right? And underneath your name, I want you to write, let's see, math makes me happy, right? Just write math makes me happy, all right? You get the idea, all right? Better than I wrote it. All right, now that I've got all those things, moving on. Back to the problem. Here we go. So this problem here says negative 2x plus y is equal to negative 4, right? Negative 3x minus 2y is equal to 8. Sorry about the condition of that right there. Let me try that again. All right, negative 3x, thank you. Minus 2y is equal to 8. And negative 2x plus y is equal to 7. And finally, I might have a problem like negative 6x minus 2y is equal to 12. And if it showed you this and it said to you, which equation has a slope of negative, let's say negative 3. If it said which equation has a slope of negative 3. Well, if it said that, you might be tempted to just look and choose this answer here because negative 3 is next to the x. But that's actually incorrect. In this form here, this is similar to standard form. It's not exactly standard form. But in this form here, you can't actually tell the slope. To get it into a form where I can find this slope for each of these, I need to solve them all for y. So the way I would handle this is each of these here, I'd have to move the x to the other side. So I'm going to add 2x to both sides for this one here. And when I do, I get y is equal to 2x minus 4. Well, 2x minus 4 shows me my slope is actually 2. So this one's out. I'm sorry. So this one is not the right answer, okay? This one here, to get this one to the other side, I'm going to add 3x to both sides, right? And I get negative 2y is equal to 3x plus 8, right? Then I'm going to divide by negative 2, because that's the next step I got to do, right? I divide everything by negative 2. So I should get y is equal to negative 3 halves x minus 4, which is a great answer, but not the correct answer, because they want a slope of negative 3, and this one's a negative 3 halves, so that one's out too. So I'm going to try, so A is not the right answer, B is not the right answer, C is maybe the right answer. Let's check it out. So negative 2x plus y, I'm going to do it down here. So negative 2x plus y is equal to 7, right? I'm going to add 2x to both sides. So now I get y is equal to 2x plus 7. Well, as you can see, that does not give me a slope of negative 3. So this one again is out. C is out, which leads me to believe it's probably D, right? But I need to double check. Always check your answer just in case you made a computation error. It might save you, all right? So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. Sorry, add 6x to both sides. And I get negative 2y is equal to 6x plus 12. Well, now I have to take and divide by negative 2 to get my y value alone. Everything else needs to be divided by negative 2 as well. So I get y is equal to negative 3, sorry, dividing all these. This is going to be negative 3x minus 6. And as you can see, this now gives me a slope of negative 3. So my answer is the answer is D is the correct answer. Ding, 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 ding. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. All right. Well, I hope you had a great time studying with me. It's been a lot of fun studying with you. I do hope that you have learned a lot this. Don't forget, when you're doing a problem like this, watch out for those positive signs, which makes it might look like FOIL, but it's not, because that positive or negative you might see there. Remember, when you're doing FOIL, do each step one at a time, right? And you're doing find the product here, even though it's a binomial times a trinomial, it's the same thing. You just need to make sure that you do multiply each of these times everything on the other side, right? Anyway, we did a lot of fun stuff here. Make sure if you need to review anything to make sure you understand it, go ahead and do that. Once again, the video is there for you to watch as many times as you need to be successful. And this is the very least you should do. Make sure you're always doing this study sheet so that you are ready for the test in all of its entirety. All right. So once again, in the upper left-hand corner, you should have had a smiley face in the bottom left-hand corner. Make sure you have that bat that I told you about. Finally, in the upper right-hand corner, you should have math makes me happy, I think is what I said. So anyway, I wish you the very, very best. Have a wonderful testing experience, and I will see you next time.